Okay, so you want to dive into urban planning. The sources you sent are super interesting. Looks like you want more than just surface level stuff. And that's what we do here.
Absolutely. What's fascinating about urban planning is it's this intersection of creativity and analytical thinking, and of course, community engagement too.
Yeah, like understanding the data, but also the people.
Exactly.
Speaking of data, one source, the Urban Planner, the complete career guide, says the job outlook for urban planners is supposed to grow by 11% over the next decade.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It's not just a stable career. It seems like a field that's really growing.
As cities grow and face new problems like climate change, sustainability, the need for people who can plan for this stuff will keep growing. It's not just about filling empty jobs. It's about actually shaping the future of our cities.
So we're not just talking about designing buildings, but creating communities that are sustainable, equitable, good places to live.
Precisely. And for that, you need a strong foundation. The guide talks about the core skills needed, and it goes beyond just typical hard skills.
Right.
Obviously, math, problem solving, critical thinking, judgment, decision making are all important.
Makes sense. It is called planning.
Right. But it was interesting to me how much they emphasize active listening. Urban planners aren't dictators. They work with community leaders, government officials, but also residents.
So finding solutions that work for everyone, not just like imposing some plan, like in some older cities where you can tell no one asked what people wanted.
And that's exactly why this is so important. It's about designing cities that are functional, but also livable, inclusive.
Now, the guide also talks about the typical career path, from entry level to senior. It even has examples of what someone's profile might look like at different stages. So when you're starting out, it seems like it's key to get hands-on experience like internships or volunteering for community projects, not just hitting the books, but really doing it.
Yeah. And then as you move up, leadership becomes more and more important because senior urban planners, they're the ones giving guidance on big projects. They're working on policies. They mentor junior staff.
They're not just planning projects, they're shaping the field. So it's a mix of concrete skills, but also these softer skills.
Definitely. And you included some stuff about RoleCatcher?
Oh, right. Which is a platform for job seekers.
Yeah.
They've got some interesting tools like a CV and resume builder, even an AI interview coach, and something to help you get seen by employers, which is really helpful with how competitive things are.
For sure. Technology is really changing how we think about careers. And platforms like RoleCatcher use AI to make searching for a job easier, less stressful even, I think, like having a personal career coach with you all the time.
Yeah, exactly. But going back to urban planning, we've talked about demand, the skills you need, what the career path looks like. But what does an urban planner actually do every day?
Well, picture this. One morning, you're looking at data, like demographics, traffic, that kind of thing.
Right.
Then in the afternoon, you're talking with people about a new park they want.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always zoning rules, environmental reports. That never ends.
It really is a mix of being analytical, but also working with people, right? It's not just maps, it's how people actually use the spaces.
And that reminds me, the guide also really stresses communication.
Makes sense.
Urban planners are always talking with people, officials, residents, different backgrounds. So you got to be able to explain complex stuff clearly, get people to agree. And sometimes there are totally opposite views you got to deal with.
So you need diplomacy skills too. Seems like a job with many hats: researcher, designer, communicator, negotiator.
Exactly. And the guide says, yeah, it can be demanding, long hours, tough choices.
Right.
But they also emphasize how satisfying it is to actually see your plans become real. Like, imagine pointing to a park or a neighborhood and saying, hey, I helped build that.
Yeah, that must feel amazing. And speaking of vision, the guide mentions how important technology is in urban planning.
Oh, for sure.
You were saying planners need to be tech savvy these days. What kind of tech are we talking about?
So one of the biggest game changers is GIS, Geographic Information Systems. With GIS, planners can look at these huge data sets about a city, like everything from how dense the population is to how traffic flows to the environment.
So instead of a slat map, it's like you can layer all this info on top and see how everything connects.
It's like having X-ray vision for cities. And it gets cooler. There's also building information modeling, BIM.
Oh, I've heard architects use that.
Yeah. And now planners use it too to make these detailed 3D models of buildings and infrastructure.
Can you give an example? How would that work in urban planning?
Okay, so say you're planning a transportation hub, right?
Okay.
With BIM, you can make a virtual model of the whole area, streets, buildings, where people walk, even how crowds move.
So you can test out how people would use the space and see any problems before you build anything.
Exactly. And it goes even further. Some planners are using virtual reality so people can actually walk through a development before it's real.
Wow, that's amazing. So tech isn't just about the present, it's about looking ahead, making cities that can adapt to whatever comes next.
You got it. And that's why the guide talks about always learning.
Makes sense.
Urban planners need to keep up with all this new stuff if they want to use it to its full potential.
Cities are always changing, so of course the planning has to as well.
Exactly.
But with all this technology, is there a risk of forgetting about the people? Making things too techy.
It's a good point, and the guide actually talks about this. Technology is awesome, but it's a tool.
Right.
Urban planning is about people.
Making places where people's needs are met, where they feel connected, all that good stuff.
Exactly. Technology should help us do that better, not replace the human part.
Finding that balance between new ideas and remembering what really matters.
Exactly. So we've talked skills, the actual work, the tech, but I bet a lot of people listening are wondering, what about the hard parts of this job?
Right. Every job has those.
Hmm.
What does the guide say about the tough parts of being an urban planner?
Well, it can be tough. The guide says that right up front.
Yeah, I bet. Trying to make everyone happy, stay within budget, all those rules and regulations. You need to be really patient.
Absolutely. And even then, sometimes you hit a wall. Like some groups just don't like the plan or something unexpected happens. Projects get delayed, you lose funding. It's not easy to keep everyone on board all the time.
So you're dealing with bureaucracy, public opinion, trying to make everyone happy, and on top of that, trying to think long term.
It's a lot.
Right.
But for people who are passionate about building good cities, fair, sustainable, all that, it's really rewarding too.
Because you're shaping the places where people actually live their lives. That's a big deal.
It is. And the guide points out there are lots of different paths you can take within urban planning.
Oh.
It's not one size fits all.
Makes sense. You don't have to be an expert in everything, but you got to care about how cities work. So what are some areas you could specialize in?
Well, you could do transportation planning, dealing with traffic, public transit, making it safe for pedestrians, that kind of thing. Or maybe you're into environmental planning, working on green spaces, renewable energy, how to deal with climate change.
So you can find what you're most passionate about and focus on that.
Exactly. There's also housing, economic development, historic preservation, tons of options, and different places to work, government, private companies, nonprofits.
So lots of flexibility to find your niche. Seems like urban planning attracts people from all walks of life.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. Having different perspectives is what brings new ideas, new solutions.
Right.
The guide emphasizes how collaborative it is. You're always learning from other planners, from the community, even from the city itself.
Like you're all working together to figure out this huge puzzle that keeps changing.
That's a great way to put it. For people just starting out, they suggest getting internships, volunteering, shadowing someone more experienced.
Yeah, get your hands dirty, make connections, learn by doing.
Exactly. And as you move up, maybe you go back to school, get another degree or some certifications to keep learning.
Always learning.
It's crucial in a field that changes so fast.
Makes sense. Cities aren't getting any simpler.
Definitely not. And with things like population growth, climate change, all the new technology, it's only going to get more complicated.
Exactly. That's why we need good urban planners who are really passionate about making better cities for everyone.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, that's our deep dive into urban planning. We covered the skills, the tough parts, the tech, and how much this field impacts our lives.
It's a glimpse into a complex world.
If you're interested, go explore. Talk to people in the field. Maybe even imagine yourself being a part of it.
The future of our cities might depend on it.
That's a great point to end on. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. See you next time.